Hi, I'm George Nordhaus. This is our sales management week and our month, and we have a wonderful speaker on the subject today. As usual, Al Diamond. He dals with us quite often because we consider him one of the outstanding consultants anywhere on agency management and all aspects of agency management. He's got something that ties right in with sales management. It's so good that we wanted to bring it to your attention. It's called the Asset Protection Model. And so we're going to do this in two parts. This first part will lay the groundwork, and the second part, which will be, you'll see it on your inside track, you'll be able to access it at any time, will conclude. Let's talk about Al just a minute. You can see he's been around quite a while, 30 years experience as a consultant. He has quite an interesting organization. We'll be talking more about it here in the next hour or two. Not hour. Hope it won't take that long, Al. Maybe a little bit shorter than that. But in the next few minutes here, we'll be talking about some of the things that he offers, his organization offers, in addition to consulting. One of which is benchmarking, which is a tremendous service, and we'll be talking more about that as the years and the time goes on, because we benchmark through Al our IMMS members, Group 500 members, or whatever, on how much it's really costing you to do business. Well, that's a whole other story, but he's the one that really invented that procedure, and it's terrific. He's been the past president of the Association of Consultants. He got us involved with him to begin with, and has been very, very helpful, spoke at our conventions over the years. At any rate, Al, let me get started by laying the groundwork here. We happen to be in an industry of buzzwords and acronyms. We're now hearing relationship selling, consultative selling, acronyms like TCOR all over the place. For over a decade, you've been telling agents we have to change, and you developed the asset protection model. And I really think it's a tremendous vehicle of change. So, but how does it relate to those latest trends and buzzwords in the industry?
Well, thank you, George. The asset protection model is, in fact, a relationship selling model for sales. It's also consultative selling. And TCOR, another industry acronym, is the total cost of risk, and it's one of the methods we use within the asset protection model.
I like TCOR, Al. I'm sorry to interrupt you. That's a great saying, great total cost of risk. It just relates to me, and I couldn't resist you saying it.
And we'll get into the detail on that and show you all the levels of that in a few minutes.
Okay.
But the acronyms really are just bare bones, and too many people use them and throw them around. What the asset protection model does is it puts some meat on those bones. And the key to the asset protection model is trust. What we found is that people use insurance agents who they trust whenever possible. And just as conversely, people don't trust people who are trying to sell them something. So what we do is we try within the asset protection model to change that philosophy, and we do that through the program that we developed probably now 10 or 12 years ago, and we called it the asset protection model. We had to have a different name for it. And the key to this is, in order to maximize insurance agency income, what we're asking agents to do is please stop selling insurance. People don't want to meet agents who are trying to sell them anything.
What a novel approach. Stop selling and get more customers. I mean, that sounds a little strange. How does that work? Doesn't it depend on how the client responds to the agent? I mean, it could be all over the lot.
Well, of course it does. And so one of the first things we do is we ask the agents, in their particular situation, and the asset protection model is designed for specific agencies, what do new prospects think the first time they meet you? And there are a lot of possibilities. For instance, do they treat you like they would treat a physician, a specialist, that they're meeting for the first time when they have a physical problem that they can't cope with, sitting on the edge of the chair waiting to hear advice? Or when they meet you for the first time, do they think you represent a necessary evil? Is that what insurance is to them? That if they don't have a claim, you're a waste of money? And that if they do have a claim, that the insurance company is going to try to spend as little as possible to resolve the situation? These are the kinds of things that we're looking for our agents to be trained on, to identify what the prospects think of them the first time they meet them.
Amazing. It's a pretty grim view. How do you change that attitude? Because a lot of people have been burned so often.
Well, what we're trying to do is we're trying to teach agents how to qualify clients and change their attitudes in order to have better prospects. And we do that first. We ask, do you think that the client believes that you're representing him or the insurance company? Now, we know that agents are agents of insurance companies, but every independent agent that I've ever met claims to be and truly wants to be a representative of the client as well.
I'm sure that's true. And I thought all agents agree they need to build relationships with their customers.
And they do. If one of the things that we're trying to do is we're trying to look at changing client attitudes. We want to change it from an agent compared to the IRS or a used car salesman, that necessary evil. And we want to change that to show the agent as truly an insurance counselor to the client. And that process of changing those attitudes is where the asset protection model really comes in. There are three main parts to the asset protection model. The first one is building relationships. The second one is building value-added services that actually differentiate yourself from all other agents around you. And the third one is building a reputation for delivering more than you cost.
Well, this all seems so commonsensical. Go on.
Well,
I mean, and I'm not. That's not a criticism. It's common sense. But sometimes we just don't think of it so clearly.
That's exactly right. For instance, when we talk about building trust relationships, what we say is that relationship building actually takes time. Too many agents try and close too soon or in the wrong place. What they've been taught in the past is as soon as you sense the advantage, try and close the sale. And what we're trying to teach agents now is that you can't close at the wrong time or in the wrong place. For instance, if you find yourself in a fast food joint and you see a beautiful woman there and she smiles at you when you smile at her, are you going to propose? Are you going to go on your first date and propose to her? And would you do it at Burger King, really? There's different times, there's different situations, and the time to close a sale is very specifically when you know what the answer will be already.
And we hope it'll be yes.
But no, it's not a hope.
No, we have to know it's going to be yes.
Don't close the sale. Don't close the sale if you aren't certain that the answer is going to be yes.
Gotcha.
Let the customer close the sale for you.
Gotcha, but never in Burger King.
Never in Burger King.
Anyway, you always talk about value-added services. Now, those are buzzwords. What do you mean by buzzword at value-added services?
Well, good, interesting question. When you're showing your worth, one of the things that you have to provide are value-added services that the customer isn't getting elsewhere. One of the things that we'll show you in just a few minutes is something called a rotating asset analysis. Most insurance agents are not one-horse ponies. They don't just sell auto insurance. They'll sell, even if they're personal lines, they'll sell auto and homeowners and valuable items and umbrella policies. And if they're a full-line property casualty agency, they sell commercial lines along with personal lines. And if they're a full-service independent insurance agency, they may very well sell a whole line of financial service products, life insurance, health insurance, long-term health care. Don't you think that every one of your clients deserves all of those products? That's what rotating asset analysis is. We'll get into that in just a few minutes. We also suggest that you develop a total cost of risk. That's the TCOR. On every client or prospect that you meet, if that client is worthy of becoming a client for your agency, do a TCOR analysis on them and provide them those services before proposing to them. Show them how much they would lose if you don't become their agent. Most of the agent's customer relationships that are developed through the asset protection model are done through broker of record letters. And that's not because we're lazy. That's because the insured is pushing us to become their agent regardless of what company or product it is.
That's not necessarily a bad thing, is it?
No, it's not at all. Now, when we...
Okay, let's talk about rotating asset analysis. Those are big words. I don't really like to cope with all that.
Yeah, we had to give our own little acronym. We had to show exactly what it was. But rotating asset analysis is actually exposing every client and every prospect to an analysis of every aspect of their assets, personal or business, for which the agency has analysis tools. Now, those are also big words. But what we're saying is, whatever you have available, make it available to every client and prospect. The thing that irks me more than anything else is when a client buys some insurance product, comes back to our agent, and says, I didn't even know you were selling that, so I bought it someplace else.
Al, let me interrupt you there a minute. What is a analysis of every aspect of business? What tool? Give me an example of an analysis tool.
Well, for instance, if we start with a client who needs some commercial lines, and we encounter him on a commercial aspect, and so what we do is we analyze his commercial lines assets, and we tell him what he needs, and we compare what he needs to what he's already got. If he has high-quality products, that's okay. We'll tell him to keep those products or keep that insurance company. It's a great product. It covers him properly. Once we're done analyzing, and of course, if he has problems with his insurance, then we help solve those problems. We don't care who he particularly uses to plug those gaps. What we're trying to show him is how much more valuable we are than his current agent. Now, once we're done with that, whether or not he wants us to become his agent for commercial lines or not, we're going to turn around and say the next thing we want to do is we want to look at your life insurance, and we want to analyze those assets. You have assets around you that we want to make sure are properly protected with life insurance. We'll analyze his situation. We'll determine what kind of life insurance products he needs. We'll compare them against what he already has and either clue him in on what supplemental products he needs. Whether he uses us or not is of less concern to us, because eventually he'll use us for all of his insurance products. Then we do that again with long-term care, we do it with health insurance, and we do it with his personal lines casualty products. And we envelop him completely. Now, doing this and doing it on a quarterly basis gives him an asset analysis and gives him a touch by our agency every quarter for perhaps 2 or 3 years. Within that period of time, we're going to find out if this is a serious contender for becoming one of our clients or if he's a discard, if he's just using us, or if he isn't serious about his own insurance program. And there are so many good clients out there that we needn't trouble ourselves with the discards.
And that's a whole other subject.
You've
got a slide that I love, Al, and I've always loved this T-Core slide. You want to explain it with it? We've got your premium at the top and so forth.
Yeah. The rotating asset analysis is obviously only fits those things that you have tools for. So if you don't have tools, 2 things are going to happen. Either you're limiting how much you analyze, which kind of assets you analyze for the client. If you're only a personal lines agent, you can only analyze his personal lines asset, but you still might be able to do his life insurance. And there are a whole set of brand new analysis tools that are available to the industry that very, very few agents have access to. And we'll talk about those later. Now, when we get into the next subject, and that's T-Core, the total cost of risk, you'll see that one of the things we show clients is that the premium they pay is not necessarily their total cost, nor is it necessarily their most expensive part of their insurance or insurable asset program. When you talk about T-Core, you're looking at deductibles or self-insurance retentions. You're looking at the risk management costs and a commercial lines exposure. You're looking at workers' comp analysis. and workers' comp reductions in rates that are available to them, all of these insurance agents either have the means of analyzing for clients or can learn. EPL exposure. There are so many clients out there who truly need an EPL analysis. No one has ever done that for them. Even business interruption is not all that common, but it's a necessary situation. So is FMLA. Most people don't even know what it means. The Family Medical Leave Act,
I'm glad you told me,
is a requirement for all moderate and larger employers. They know they're required to do it, but for the most part, until they're large enough, 150, 250 employees, they don't have the wherewithal internally to audit themselves and make sure they're properly following this act or several other federal and state regulatory acts that without which they make themselves subject to some terrific fines and penalties.
Al, I'm a realist, though. We have to be a realist when we're dealing with as many agents as we are, and it'd be pretty impressive if all agents had a toolbox like you described, but I don't think the agents are aware of many of those services and products.
You're absolutely right, they're not. And that's where we come in. Most agents, when we show them all the tools that should be available within their agency, they sort of shut down and they go into the simplicity phase where they say, look, all I know as an agent is product and price. I know my products, the ones I sell, pretty well. And we're specialists in quoting and pricing things. And what I respond back to them is fine. 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 30 years ago, yes, being a product specialist and being a pricing specialist got you far in this world. But there are a lot of good agents out there who also know product and price, and you're not differentiating yourself from your competitors if product and price is the only thing you have to sell. So now it's time to change. And there are companies that can provide you the knowledge base that most other agents don't have. Those companies have come into the marketplace, some of which, by the way, is presented by your own relationships at Group 500. And the products and services that they have available to them are wonderful. And if the client learns those products and services, you outstrip your competitors cold. You have a lot more available to you than they do. And what you need to do is reach out, and you need to learn how to differentiate yourself from your competitors in order to get the jump on them and to really get the client to sell himself on the fact that he needs to be, you need to be his agent. Not because you're quoting price, but because you provide him so much value for his dollar that he can't afford to go with the price shopper.
Well, I have to ask you where the agent finds all this. I know we have some of the things, but boy, you're talking about a broad spectrum of services available out there.
Oh yes, there truly are. There are value-added services throughout the industry. What you need to do is you need to act as if the prospect is already your client. You have to provide those services and the value to those clients. And you need to tell the prospects you're doing this to show them your value beyond that of their current agent. And we keep providing that service until the prospect becomes your client or until you realize that their values are not yours. There are people out there who will use you and always stay with their good buddy or their brother-in-law or whoever that agent is. As soon as you find that out, they're no longer your prospect. And eventually they may come back to you, but we can't waste our time on those. There are so many other qualified prospects out there who want your services.
Well, assuming you have a toolbox full of those services, how do you know when to use them on the prospects? And do you charge them for these services? Do you have to charge them, or are you allowed to charge for them? Or what if they're not your clients, and how do you present that stuff?
In the past, agents who have purchased service packages have turned around and charged clients for them, charged them fees, whatever it was. What we're suggesting to you is if you want to be the permanent, long-term agent for life for these clients, you need to keep providing value-added services and do those asset checkups each year and keep in solid, constant communication with your clients on a regular basis, and do it without asking for compensation for it, because the compensation you get will be clients with the loyalty factor that you used to have, or that every agent has in his top 10 or 20 clients that he has already established those relationships with, and he knows that as long as he maintains the relationship that he has with those favorite clients, they're not going anywhere because he's doing the right job for them.
Well, I think we've covered quite a lot in this presentation, and I think maybe that's enough to swallow. We'll come back in with part 2. What are we going to cover in part 2?
Well, we're going to cover, first of all, we are going to talk about where to get those services.
Oh, good.
In part 2.
Good, that'll help.
But we're also going to talk about guaranteed referrals, the 3-hook approach, and I'll explain how the 3-hook approach works that will assure you that you'll get about 50% referrals every year.
That's a lot.
That's a lot, and that's a minimum number. There are some agents that work the asset protection model that do virtually no marketing at all. All of their business is coming from referrals, but they don't sit on the phone waiting for them. They go out and get them themselves. We're also going to find out the truth about why most agents won't succeed in relationship selling. This is the best news that your readers and your viewers have ever heard, because here is a chance to do something that we know works. It's a proven product both inside and outside the insurance industry, but 90% of the agents that are out in the United States today will never succeed in doing relationship selling, and we'll explain why. And finally, we're going to explain once and for all how to beat the quote machine, how to get out of the mandated, all I want is a price, give me a price.
Boy, this is beautiful stuff, Al, and it's exactly the philosophy that we've been espousing over these years, and the way you've set it up here, it's a neat study. I would suggest to people to come back and listen to Al again and again and get other people in your agency to do it. But if they want to contact you in the meantime, they can do so here. Let's take a look at your contact information there. And I know that knowing you'll respond to them as you always have and probably always will.
Oh, absolutely. And I believe that we're going to make an offer either today or at the next session of a free half-hour consult, and invite every agent who's viewing this or listening to it either now or through the archives to pick up the phone and call me.
Good. Let's do it both times. What he's saying is that he'll consult with you for 30 minutes on this or any other subject on agency management at no charge. And boy, oh boy, take advantage of that, because Al will, that's the best deal in town.
If you don't mind the talking back and forth, we'll have a good time doing it, and we can address an awful lot of problems.
Okay, Al, thanks a lot. Let's go and do part 2 now.